So happy to be here. So that's basically what we're gonna go through today. The rules about a blunt line. So blunt lines have 0 elevation. The second you move it, it's no longer a blunt line. If you're going to go above the 90, you're gonna create layers. If you're gonna go below the 90, you're gonna create a lot of, graduation. So it's going to lift the hair up. So depending on what you're trying to achieve, you'll choose that technique. So we're gonna start with basic horizontal cutting and over direction, slight over direction. Now, this is just a bunch of different things for you to add to your toolbox. You can choose to use them however you see fit. The first one is slight over direction of the sides, and we're directing everything back. Most of the time when I'm cutting long hair, I want to make it look as thick as possible, especially if it's string-like at the bottom. So we're going to just use really loose tension here and collect everything all the way to the back of the nape. I'm going to take a long blade and re-engage the hair inside my comb. So this is going to be the smallest amount of tension, minimal tension to no tension, and also directing everything back to that horizontal line at the nape. So when I release this, we're gonna have a slight graduation. This is going to slightly bring these sides back, and you'll have like the beginning of an A line very simply without a lot of effort on your part. We're not using a lot of our own body position. We're just letting gravity and geometry take its natural shape. So here we go, making sure that your section is really nice and clean, directing everything to the back. We begin to use the back of our comb on the underneath against the nape. Taking a long pair of shears, I'm going to then push the hair into the comb. Now the more I want to ask the guest to look down, the more dramatic this is going to get. So slightly look down towards the ground or gaze down towards the ground. Now here we go with the blunt line. This is quite a bit of hair, so I am using a Hanzo blade. These are my 7.5, they're pretty sharp, so they're not having a lot of trouble going across. And I'm just going straight across the blunt line. So this is gonna create a lot of strength in her baseline. Now, to make sure that the underneath, to give a slight undercut, all I'm gonna do is tilt my shears upward, so they're on a slight angle, and I'm gonna cut the underneath a tiny bit shorter. So my shears are just slightly angled, and then I get a slight undercut, so the top layer will be a little bit longer to cup under. As she looks up, you'll see we have a really nice format for the beginning of a blunt line. So releasing it, and it's fail-proof. We don't have to worry about the ear or a hole around the ear because of the over direction and the bluntness of that horizontal line. It's got us set up for success from the beginning. Any questions so far? Oh, hey Cameron, hey Sophia, North Carolina, what's up? A lot of my friends on here. If you're not my friends yet, I'd love you to be my friend. So I've been with Lonza for several years now, and hair cutting is one of my greatest passions. I call myself a lover of all things hair, so I love updos, braiding, styling, but hair cutting is just something happened in beauty school when I started cutting hair. It gave me a pitter pat, and it's really stayed with me ever since. So thank you for being with me today. So we basically want to give the impression of stability, strength with this horizontal line. Now, if I came to the side and she perhaps does not want that slight elevation, we see we have just a very slight slope here, and if she doesn't want that, how we can keep this nice and stable and blunt here is by not really using our own body mechanics very much, but just letting the natural fall happen, combing several times from the underneath, so we have the full length of this horizontal line starting at her nape all the way to the front of her head, gently using my shears to press in, and then I would ask the guest to slightly tilt their head. Might be, yep, there she goes, beautiful. And then I can see exactly where we're getting longer right here. Then with the cutting blade on top, I'll just go through here and balance that to the hair behind. So even if I wasn't planning to do an A-line, I still could start that off to just get a really perfect blunt line. that as this shrinks up and as the ears catch it, it will still be good to go as it dries. So this was something that was pretty life-saving for me earlier in my career and helped me with not getting holes around the ears or elevating too much or creating too much inversion around the hairline. So same thing, other side, combing several times, then taking the entire section, sending the bone of the comb back to the head, letting it go into a horizontal line, using my shears to tap it, pulling it down, nice natural tension, then asking my guest to slightly shift their head. Again, I can see exactly what's happening here. Cutting blade on top, gently just snipping this off. When I release, it should be pretty much a perfect blunt line. So that's a good wet line story for the blunt line, how to do it wet. I want to show a couple of techniques on how to do it with dry hair. I do 50-50. You know, if I'm cutting off a lot of length, I like to cut wet hair, but if I'm doing just some detailing or reshaping, I like to work with dry hair. So my next model, let's give it up for this lovely lady here. And she basically was working on getting a shag, and she's had it for a lot of months now, and she's just totally getting sick of it. She's bored, she's over it, her hair feels thin and wispy. She really wants to just make it all a lot more blunt going into fall. She wants to feel like she has more hair. So what do we know about a blunt line? It's going to basically give the illusion of the most amount of hair and the most amount of weight. So it's a perfect decision for her. Let me grab a couple of clips because we are going to lift this section. And we'll start and do this in maybe 3 sections, not too many. This is all pretty fast, but this is just different ways to create an awesome blunt line. Can everybody see? Okay, doing good here. So we'll start in the back. I'm gonna go behind the ear and behind the ear here. And we'll just lift it up so that the section is manageable. And we're gonna create a blunt line in this base. So I'm gonna take a pretty large section. It's not huge, I can still manage it. Go ahead and look down, thank you. And I'm gonna subdivide this one more time, just so it's a little less. We're still working off the horizontal. And what we're gonna do now, you got me the other pair of these that are bigger. And 1 second, just get the right tool for the job. We will begin. We're going to use texture shears instead of regular shears to cut our line. So this is going to give a lot of interest to it. Now, if I use my texture shears normal, like they normally are, when I do this, I'm not going to get a lot of results. It's just going to thin it out. See that? So this is great for just thinning out the section. Boom, I lose half my weight. But if I want to create a blunt line, I'm going to flip my texture shears. So see, my shank is going to be upside down. So see, flipping shank upside down. Then I'm going to decide the length. Now with this very first horizontal line, this is a blunt line story, so all of this is going to be blunt, but that doesn't mean I can't vary the length of the 0 elevation. So 0 elevation, starting here right up against the head, taking my texture shears, and because I've got them flipped upside down, they're not just texturizing, they're giving us an awesome blunt line that is super soft and basically gives that guest this edge and this very nice feeling of having something quite different. So again, I'll just lay this next section right on top. Now maybe I want to go a little longer, or maybe I want to build some graduation inside the 2 0-degree horizontal lines, the blunt lines. So maybe I am going to really push into the geometry here. So we'll start with this being just a 0 elevation, blunt line, taking all this hair, taking my texture shears, they're upside down, and beginning to cut this blunt line. You see that? Very soft, very interesting. Now also, see my finger position. If I roll my finger position, this is gonna encourage this to push down. If I flip my fingers up here, this is gonna give more of a flip. So you're actually controlling the direction that the hair is going to be with how your finger position is. grabbing the slack section, making sure I'm pointing my fingertip down, 0 elevation. And to double check your work, you can always just push the hair against the neck and see that everything is good to go. Now, let's say we're gonna do the next section as an undercut, and we wanna build a little bit of weight because she has fine, soft hair. So what is something I could do with this under section to create and push up the shape? So with graduation, when you lift the hair, you're graduating it basically. When you're creating shorter layers inside underneath the 90-degree angle, we're creating weight, and that's gonna build a shape for us. So we're gonna right now take this horizontal blunt line, and we're gonna create a little bit of shape here to push up all this hair at the top that we haven't got to yet. So I'm just gonna keep my horizontal line, and I'm gonna scissor over comb, starting here, pulling it right out from the head, and we're just gonna tap, 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 scissor over comb, just to build some nice shape in this underneath. You can point cut in if you'd like, or just scissor over comb. But we wanna build enough short hair to push the longer hair on top so that when I lay this section down, it actually is going to give the cutest shape in the world to the back of her head. It's like amazing to see the differences that you can create by just changing your direction. So then we're gonna let this section down, subdivide it in a horizontal line. Back we go, lifting this top section. Now all this hair falls over the previous undercut that's shorter, and that's totally cool. So we decide again what length we want to have here, and we cut right on top. Again, I'm using the texture shears and creating, you can see just how awesome this is. And again, if I held them upright, like how they're supposed to be used, all it's gonna do is remove weight like it's supposed to. But if I flip it, it gives this edge. And you're able to like really see that blunt line with a lot of texture within the 0 elevation. Last section, lowers down. Now she previously had a shag, so she's got some short pieces up here. So all this is gonna do is give her a stronger foundation and make her feel really confident about the density of her hair moving into fall of 2021. So here we go, collecting this all back. Now because I'm pulling it from both sides, I'm gonna get a slight over direction. So when I release this, it's going to cup nicely around her neck. So taking my last section here and just removing that weight and letting it go. And now we have the beginning of our blunt line story. You can see this just gave her such a cute pop in the back and really made her feel like she had a lot more hair here compared to how she was feeling with it all collapsed. So moving into the sides, again, another way you can use the blunt line is around the face or the fringe area. So taking this next section at no elevation, 0 elevation, just putting this in my comb for a really nice blunt line. And you can see she's two-toned here. She's got the half copper, half RR by Lonza Healing Hair Care. And we're basically just gonna take our clippers here and just keeping a really strong line. Everything's pinched together. Really trying to do 0 elevation as much as we can, but letting that go. And you can see that really gave her even more density. So as this haircut progresses, this woman is feeling more confident, like she has more hair, and her shape is still quite interesting through the back with the shape that we're working at. So horizontal line can be quite interesting. And that's the thing, if you study design, you see that horizontal lines give impression of stability. It expands the room. It's appealing. But if it's overused, it could be boring. So that's where there's these different variations to help keep it looking exciting, keeping it looking fresh, and keeping it stimulating your guests so they keep coming back and trusting you with their hair, that you're not just doing the same thing every time they come in, that you're really reaching for what's gonna be the best style for them and what's going to really appeal to them. So, any questions out there? How's everybody loving their Lonza? We've got some awesome new products coming out. It's been really exciting to see the evolution through as our world has been changing so much. We have our new CBD line and our new True line. So Lonza not letting anyone down and making sure that we really keep the most highest conscious awareness with our ingredients and how we're treating the planet. All right, for our last technique, we're gonna do some graduation. Again, keeping that blunt line story feel. And you've seen this before, I'm sure, but not from me. So we're gonna start by, in my career, I've had a chance to work with some pretty amazing hairdressers, and some of them have really impacted and changed my life for the best. A few men, a few women. Philip Wilson I got to hang out with for a few years in the beginning when I was much younger, and he really did impact the way I cut hair to this day because he gave me the confidence to do so. So this is something I still use. It's really simple, and it's just using condensed cutting and taking both of your combs together, and you can create a really strong line really quickly. So I'm going to just create more of her bob-like shape by connecting these lines together, layering it back, and then you can take whatever type of blade you want. I'm gonna do a little bit skinnier of a blade here, and we're just gonna create the shape that we're moving into. Moving down the head, letting it go, and when you release that, you've really got an awesome shunt. So we're going to just then comb this out. And you know what I love about our industry is that we just all get to have so many different opinions. And there's really a bunch of right ways to do things, and there's also just a bunch of ways to do things. So I think if you're getting the result that you need and you're being conscious about it, that you're really allowed to kind of be an artist and create whatever works for you. One of the things about knowing the rules is you're able to then, you know, move in between the lines. So here's just another great way to work the blunt line and to create something that's really fun and amazing. Any questions today? All right, let's do one more fringe technique. Basically with cutting the fringe, I really work off natural fall. So I'm looking where the hair starts to shift away from the head. Right about here is usually where I begin my fringe. This is another fun one. You can just take the hair, and you could use the clippers if you like. Do be mindful of the eyebrow. You would never want to whack somebody's eyebrow off if you're using clippers. So I think there's a lot of conscientiousness that needs to go into that for sure. And then if you come here with your scissors, you just can pinch this nice and taut together. Now notice I'm not flipping my fingers up, I'm rolling them down. And then I'm going to just snip right here. And you'll see you still get that very similar look, nice and blunt. Another great technique you can do is taking your texture shears, and again, if you just want to soften this edge, scooping them together, taking these upside down once again, and I'm just going to really nice and softly break up that line. You see that gives just a little bit of softness here, and creating more blunt line with a slight bit of over direction. Over direction is going to be when you cut the hair side to side. So you can do this with any shape. So keeping the hair nice and blunt still, we're going to take this right radial section from the top of the head to the top of the ear, and we are going to shift it all the way over to the other side of the head here. Now you can choose to do this with scissors, your texture shears, your clippers if you want, but be careful not to cut anywhere you don't want to with your clippers. And you can even do it with slightly wet hair. Look at that. So I'm just going right onto my fingertip with my clippers here. And when I release it, it just gives this nice, awesome, still quite blunt line, but directs it completely away from the face. Same thing, other side. Top of head to behind the ear, taking it all the way down, over directing it. And you can see, just kind of keeping an eye on where I was at on the other side, picking up my clippers, and giving this a little love here, pop, pop, pop. And then when you release it, again, so you've got some shape around the face,